Я хочу, чтобы вы поприветствовали Хольгера Майера из UBI Global. Хольгер научный руководитель UBI, как я говорил ранее, тут еще двое коллег его в зале. И он нам расскажет о том, как они вообще рейтингуют бизнес-инкубаторы, какие там есть критические показатели и о том проекте, который мы будем, результаты которого мы будем презентовать сегодня перед ужином. Это, собственно, рейтинг российских бизнес-инкубаторов. So, Holger, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much, George. I did not understand a word of that, but my Russian is a little rusty. But I think you did an amazing job introducing me. So, long story short, I'm Hольger Майер. I'm the UBI research manager, and we at UBI Global, we are a research agency or a research organization that specializes exclusively on measuring, assessing, and benchmarking business incubators that have a university link, like an affiliation and association. And this year, we teamed up with RBC and HSE Inc. to do a comprehensive assessment, overview, and benchmark of the Russian incubation landscape. Okay, yeah, there's something missing there, but anyway, so on this slide, there should be, in the middle, should be your incubators and accelerators. And the slide itself is about the incubation ecosystem. So a lot of people, there's a lot of talk about incubation ecosystems. Some people might not know what that actually is. So an incubation ecosystem is an essential requirement for any kind of incubation or acceleration program to run efficiently. So this means the top incubators worldwide are all nested, and in Russia, are all nested in a well-functioning incubation ecosystem, which consists of universities, corporations, strong investment networks, strong associations with incubator associations, nationally and internationally, and of course with government representatives. And this doesn't mean that you are just, or the successful incubators are just a spider in the middle of the web being connected to everybody, but that they actually engage or enable discussion and communication, cooperation among these other actors as well. And this is something we find globally as well as in the Russian center. Move on. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so very briefly about how we actually collected and treated the data to get to our benchmarking results. So what we do is we want to come up with one comprehensive score for each incubator that we assess, and we can compare them, benchmark them, and rank them with regard to other incubators. So we have three categories in which we look how do these incubators perform. We have the value for the ecosystem, value for clients, and attractiveness. So these are three categories that are used to make up the complete score. Then these three categories are informed by 7 subcategories, which in turn provide the cumulative score for each category. And these subcategories in turn are informed by KPIs. So for example, if we take the subcategory economic enhancement, it's informed by the KPIs jobs created over the last 5 years. So how many jobs were created by startups that came out of a specific incubator? What were their sales revenues? How many international sponsors did they engage? How many international partners do they have? And how much revenue did they actually generate? Of course, I'm oversimplifying here a little bit because of time constraints, but yeah, we do weigh these KPIs differently. So we weigh them, we standardize them, we normalize them, and then we sum them up to get the respective scores. And in the very end, we sum up the KPIs to get the subcategory scores, then we sum up the subcategory scores to get the category scores, and then finally we sum up the category scores to get the overall score. Okay, now that hopefully I know that was very quick, and I'm happy to answer any questions about that later on, but now we will turn to the Russian landscape actually. what did we look at? Okay, we will take a quick break. See you back in 10 minutes. Okay, yeah, no, okay, yeah, we will look at Russian incubators. In total, 72 were assessed. 59 of these 72 have a university association. So they're either directly run by universities or they are associated or have another form of working relationship with one or more universities. And then we had 13 independent incubators. This means they are either privately funded and operated, or they are funded and operated in collaboration with governments, local, regional, national governments. Yeah, so this latter group, this latter sample was basically used as a reference that we see how do the Russian university-linked incubators actually do in comparison to private or independent incubators. Yeah, we looked at, it would be nice to get the KPIs up. But yeah, so overall, we looked at these Russian incubators and then we compared them against each other as well as against European and global peer organizations. So we want to see how do top Russian incubators do in comparison to top European incubators or in comparison to top global incubators. And in the report which we released, based on these data, we even included some comparisons to other national innovation ecosystems. So for example, to Canada, to Brazil. Like how do Russian incubators do compared to other nations or incubators from other nations. And of course, most importantly, I will not name any names of the very well-performing or not so well-performing incubators today, but you will hear from our CEO tonight during the award ceremony the top 3 of each of the ranking categories who actually made it to the very top. So definitely stay tuned for that. And you'll hear a little bit about their best practices as well. Okay, so we are back in Russia. Yay, and there's the landscape. Okay, so these are the 72 programs that we look at. I mean, not surprisingly, you probably see, most are in the central federal district and the Volga district. A bunch are in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, like the typical hub, internationally known startup hubs. I mean, Moscow was just named the 15th best startup hub in the world. Not surprisingly, we have some Samara, for example, other startup hubs, but we have startups in very different regions as well. And going from Murmansk to Krim Peninsula. So it's a distribution, but we see it's heavily clustered in the European section of Russia. Okay, here are a couple of those programs that actually participated. And yeah, HSE was, we assessed them, we benchmarked them, but we excluded them, of course, from the rankings. For obvious reasons, they were essential partners in this project, so we wanted to avoid any conflict of interest. So we don't want to run the risk of ranking them and then being accused of, but these guys tweaked the methodology, or they made you say something that you didn't want to say. Okay, so here we have a little more like summary data. The 72 programs I was talking about. Overall, the 59 are the programs that we focus on, so university-linked incubators. We see the programs overall are very young, so the average incubator age is 5 years. Globally, this is 10 years in our global sample. But of course, just to put this in perspective, I'm talking a lot about averages. We always have to be very careful when we look at averages, when we don't take into consideration the spread of the data, and this is just a very basic overview, but we have to always contextualize the results we draw from these data analysis. So here in the bottom you see a spread of when the incubators that we looked at were actually founded. So we go from 1995 to 1-year-old incubators. The sector spread is pretty much in line with the global and the European spread. So ICT is always, not surprisingly, the sector that is represented mostly. And the clean tech is a little underrepresented in Russia, but in general, even globally, that is where fewest of the startups come from. Then yeah, the average duration is a little below European average duration, while the number of employees, the average is 9, which is just slightly below the European numbers as well. At the same time, Russian programs receive way more. Russian programs receive way more applications than European and global competitors. Okay, let's look into this a little bit more in detail. Again, take the caveats about averages into account. So these are the 7 subcategories that I mentioned earlier. And this is how the Russian ecosystem, or the sample that we took, stacks up against European and global comparisons. So the trend lines are similar, right? But Russia is underperforming a little bit in all of these categories. So we see gaps that are a little bigger, a little smaller, but Russia is slightly underperforming in these categories. And of course, the question everybody asks is, why is this the case? One explanation is, this is the gap that we have between the top 10 performing incubators in Russia and the average. So in Russia, when we look at the data, we have a very large spread. We have some very well-performing incubators on the right and the rest. So we have a spread that is much larger than in the global and the European distributions. And yeah, top Russian incubators compete very successfully, even on the global level. Here we have one of the explanations. Here's a comparison between global European, the Russian average, and the top Russian average. And the top Russian incubators not only follow global trends in innovation and incubation culture and best practices, but they have really developed a genuine Russian model. For example, we see there's a large emphasis on corporate sponsorship. So the top incubators are very good at attracting corporate sponsors and having them as one of the main sources of their revenue. At the same time, they don't rely that much on university and government funding. So, and this is a very interesting finding. Globally, often university, government, and corporate funding go hand in hand, while in Russia, they often compete in a way. So you either go the government way or you go the corporate way. Other interesting findings, here. We have like an other category as well, which is about, there are licensing fees, consultancy, so there are a bunch of other revenue streams for incubators, but these are the most important ones. Then, what do they actually provide? And this is, again, the top Russian incubators are like the European average or incubators focusing on office space, coaching and mentoring, a very important component globally, internationally, and the international top incubators focus very heavily on this as well. Coaching and mentoring, volunteering is key. So basically, successful entrepreneurs sold their companies coming back as mentors, as advisors, who help the program that made them rise to the top. Okay, so just for time's sake, let's very quickly run through these things that we learned from what did the Russian top incubators do better or different from the average. Show results. So number one, what you have to do for that is track your results. Have your KPIs established and track what you're doing. Show success stories. Show follow up with your graduates. Where did they go? Don't just send them out of the door and don't care, but track their performance. And of course, keep them in your network. Make them the next sponsor. Related to that is, of course, raise awareness. All throughout the sample, Russian incubators are very good in organizing events, but quantity doesn't equal quality. The top performers are very, very skilled in having good events that deliver value to very specific stakeholder groups. So they have events for potential clients, for potential investors, events to convince government officials that this is worth investing in. Then, of course, build your innovation ecosystem, the thing that I talked about in the very beginning. So once you have your numbers, your success stories, you've talked to everybody, keep them involved, keep them interested. And then, most importantly, sustain the culture of innovation. And this is something that where Russia lags a little bit, with the exception of some very successful innovation hubs. When you look at, not only Silicon Valley, but worldwide, you have innovation hubs, where really you have volunteers who give back. You have the startups settling in the immediate vicinity of their alma mater, if you want. And this is a core finding as well. And for example, Moscow is a very good example of this. That you have these successful companies staying, partners investing, governments being interested. And of course, all of these findings are explained in our report, which came out of this research and which will be available to all of you free of charge, thanks to RBC and HOC.A. And then, of course, most importantly, tonight, remember, these were the 4 categories in which we ranked the Russian sample, and tonight the winners will be revealed. I'm not sure if there's any time left for questions. If not, feel free to hunt me down in the corridors, email me. I'm more than happy to go over this in a little more detail.
Thanks, Holger. But since there are 3 of you and no pressing questions and jumping deeper in the room, I guess, we'll leave it to tonight. Once you release the rankings, I think there'll be more questions.
Okay.
Благодарим, Holger.
Thank you very much, and like I said, feel free to contact us anytime.